Welcome, foolish mortals, back to the villain's lair, and I am so excited to have you back here for another villain profile. Today we're going to talk about one of the first villains I was exposed to and one of the strongest ones in my memory, and that is Ursula the Sea Witch. She is kind of a classic villain in the sense that her character was greatly expanded for the Disney version of the movie, which is kind of interesting. Usually the villains are kind of a strange adaptation added later, and they're usually not super true to the book, and Ursula follows this while she does kind of serve the same main purpose. The Sea Witch in Hans Christian Andersen's original tale was much less of an actual, I'm losing my notes here, much less of an actual villain and more of a mechanism for Ariel to gain her legs and therefore her immortality. Because if you remember, in the original story, Ariel isn't really after Eric specifically. She didn't fall in love with an actual person. She just found out that mermaids live like 500 years, but because they have no souls, they disappear into sea foam upon their death, which really, in a sense, means that while they physically live longer than humans, they have no immortal soul and therefore exist for less time than we do. And so her main motivation in the original Hans Christian Andersen tale is to marry a human, because by marrying a human man, it says openly, if he loves you more than even his mother, that you will gain some soul through exposure to him and his soul, and therefore you can go to heaven. Her mission is to have a human love her that much so she can go to heaven, so she can gain an immortal soul. The Sea Witch in the story, then, rather than being the central conflict of the story, is really just the mechanism through which she gains these legs in order to kind of enthrall this human being. It's kind of interesting because since they took out the whole no soul thing, they had to make more conflict in the Disney one, so they gave Ursula a bigger role than she would have otherwise had as the Sea Witch. The Sea Witch in Andersen's tale is pretty open about the fact that she disagrees with Ariel's plan. She considers it unlikely to work. She doesn't consider it worth the risk. And since giving Ariel legs comes with painful and terrible side effects, she just thinks overall this is a terrible idea and tries to talk Ariel out of it. Ariel is having none of that and goes ahead and gets the legs anyway. So if in many ways, the Sea Witch is just kind of a crossroads for Ariel in the original story, which really doesn't even name the Little Mermaid Ariel. I'm just going to call her Ariel because that's what Disney calls her, and in the other book she doesn't have a name at all, so it just makes it a lot less complicated. So they expanded the Sea Witch's character, even though she is still the one that gives Ariel her legs in the Disney version. She starts off clearly having a beef with Triton in the beginning. She already is spying on Ariel and sees this more defiant daughter as an opportunity to take down her enemy, King Triton. In the original plans for the movie, they were supposed to be siblings, Ursula and King Triton, which means they would both be children of Poseidon. However, this idea was scrapped at a later date, and Ursula was a member of his court. She does state at one point that things were different when she lived at the palace. Hang on a second. And so, you don't really get a clear idea of what her purpose was in the palace originally. However, yes, I love you too. I love you. But it does say in the Kingdom Hearts guidebook that she was the palace fortune teller. It's hard to concentrate with this much cuteness. But it doesn't really clarify, at least Disney doesn't at any point, what her specific role was in the palace, but we do know that the idea of her being Triton's sister was scrapped. So the only thing we really have to go on is the official Kingdom Hearts guide that she must have been the palace fortune teller. I don't know why you need a palace fortune teller, but I'm not a mythological merman, so there you go. Anyway, it's clear right from the beginning, because of their backstory, whatever it may be, Ursula's beef with him and her deal with Ariel is profoundly personal, whereas in the Hans Christian Andersen tale, it was decidedly not. It was more of a customer-client interaction. Ursula though, like the Sea Witch in the story, is remarkably upfront with what is going on in the situation. Like, she not only sings the terms and conditions to Ariel, but then she also goes ahead and monologues about them afterwards. So later in the movie, when Ariel's plan is exposed and she's a mermaid again and she's all, "Daddy, I didn't mean to." Yeah, you have those terms and conditions laid out for you perfectly twice, sister. So you can just go ahead and forget the whole "I didn't mean to" nonsense. You meant to. You just didn't think there'd be any consequences because you're a cute little princess with ginormous blue eyes and nothing bad ever happens to them. So, yeah, no. She knew what she was doing. She just didn't think she'd actually have a price to pay for her actions. And so, in that way, her bad choices are kind of still a conflict in the movie, just not to the extent that they were in the story. So again, they have to expand Ursula's character. Ursula's character design was originally meant to be partially octopus, but it was too expensive and too complicated to animate 8 legs, so if you do the counting, she'll only have 6. A lot of classic fans count her 2 arms as the remaining tentacles and still call her an octopus, though, which is kind of interesting. For character design, originally they did kind of have her as kind of a combination of like a scorpion fish and all kinds of different fish and crustaceans, but they eventually settled on the octopus form because they wanted her to be kind of unsettling, and the way octopi move is a little bit uncomfortable. And I have to admit, her movement, even rewatching this as an adult, does kind of make me a little uncomfortable as I watch it. Like, it's a little creepy, especially when she does like her victory crawl down the aisle to grab Ariel. I have a problem with things creepy crawling. Like, not creepy crawly things like bugs and insects, but when your method of crawling is creepy, like Tifiti Tekai, crawling at the end of Moana towards Moana, freaks me out. The girl from the ring freaks me out. I can't handle things that have a creepy way of crawling. Like, if you're a contortionist, get out of my house, because I can't handle you. It's things that move in ways that they shouldn't make me uncomfortable. And so that scene where Ursula is crawling down the aisle to grab Ariel, and then the animation of her tentacles, both when she is giant and after she is impaled by the ship, the way her tentacles kind of curl around the ship as she sinks into the water, it's just creepy. I don't know. It bugs me. It bugs me. So I think good call, Disney, for picking an octopus to make her motions kind of animated after, because it makes me pretty uncomfortable watching it. It really does, which is really weird. And I didn't think about it that much as a kid. I just thought she was scary because she's a villain. But going back and watching it, it is really the movement of her body that makes me kind of uncomfortable with her as a villain. It's just kind of icky and weird. So that's my grown-up definition, icky and weird. So that's kind of my conclusion of Ursula. She is motivated by greed and the desire specifically for power and for what she considers her right to the throne. In fact, that's what she was banished for in the first place, whether she was Triton's sister or his fortune teller. In all cases, she was banished for trying to take over the throne, which was not rightfully hers, and there is no level to which she will not stoop in order to gain this power to control the ocean, including manipulating people who are still legally children. So, you know, not a great girl, but at least she's upfront and honest about it, you know, and really, the one thing I kind of wanted to take away from this that I thought was kind of neat at the end, something I hadn't thought about till this last run through, we're dealing with a world of mythical creatures, right? I mean, we've got giant magical octopus lady and her crazy cauldron. We've got the merman king with his crazy powerful trident. We've got Ariel's a mermaid flounder, for crying out loud, maybe powerless, but at least he's a talking fish, so there's still something mystical about him. How cool is it that the big bad, the ultimate terror of this movie, was taken down by a simple human boy with no powers whatsoever? I just kind of thought that that was cool, that you, even in this magical world, don't need to be a magical being in order to still take down evil. So tell me what you thought. Do you think Ursula's movements are creepy? And do you think it's way 10 courage points to Eric for taking her out, even though he was by far the most helpless character in the situation of that final fight? Let me know what you thought, and have a wonderful Christmas.